This episode is brought to you by Indie Film Hustle TV, the world's first streaming service dedicated to filmmakers, screenwriters, and content creators. Learn more at indiefilmhustle.tv. I'd like to welcome to the show Jerry Goehring and Patty Carver. How you guys doing?
Oh, great, Alex. Thanks for having me.
Hi, Alex.
Thank you so much for coming on the show. I wanted to have you guys come on the show because you have a great product and called Saltbox TV, and I just was really interested in using it as a case study as far as how to focus on niche audiences as opposed to going mass market, which so many filmmakers do nowadays, creating their projects in TV, thinking that they're going to compete with Marvel or Disney or Star Wars or any of these kind of mass market concepts, or even just a general drama or a general comedy. It's very difficult in the independent film world to do that. And I think focusing on the niche is so valuable. And you guys have definitely focused on a niche. But before we go down the road with Saltbox TV, how did you guys get involved in the entertainment business in general?
Wow. All right. Want me to go first, Jerry?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay, I'll go first. So I'm a singer and actress.
Mm-hmm.
And for the past 20 years, Jerry and I have theater companies. Before that, I traveled across the country doing regional stock dinner theater, cabaret in New York. And after we got married, we started some theater companies, including Connecticut Children's Theater. And Jerry, of course, has always had his commercial projects. But as far as I go, after we got married and we had 2 children, I sort of had to navigate around all that. And so I created these one-woman musical programs, which I started performing in schools, libraries, historical societies, and older adult communities. And as the years rolled by and I was able to book around my kids growing up and being carpool queen and driving to swim meets, my audience flipped to almost exclusively older adult audiences in communities. And I love this audience. And I have a database of hundreds of communities up and down the East Coast, throughout the Midwest, New England. And that's a large part of what I've been doing for the past 20 years after we got married. And and so when COVID hit, theater was shut down. And so Saltbox was born of COVID. But maybe, Jerry, you should just talk a little bit about your background before we start talking about Saltbox. I don't know.
Yours is so much more interesting now. I wasn't happy for a while.
You're a good husband, sir. You're a good husband.
Yeah. Fine. Where can I tell you my background? My background, I'm on the other side of the footlights. I can't sing, dance, act. I can't do any of that stuff. But I started producing way back when in the late 80s, early 90s, in New York, and produced. I can't even tell you how many shows around the country, in London, elsewhere through the years. Patty and I started nonprofits. For a long time, I was a turnaround guy for nonprofit theater companies when they were in trouble. I did that for a while. I would say in the last 10 years or so, I've also started working on a ton of commercial projects, meaning Broadway, off-Broadway, and West End. So my focus has always either been on the nonprofit in the theater world and really supporting artists, young writers, young creators. And conversely, then in the commercial world, taking those artists that have a voice, that really want something to say. You can tell I love this because I pride myself on reaching an audience that is underserved. And like Patty talked about the children's theater we started, it sounds so like, oh, theater for children. No. Here's what we did. We actually got together all of our Broadway friends. We created professional shows. And all we did, Alex, is we went to the inner cities of at-risk communities and gave professional theater experiences to only pre-K to second graders in at-risk community. How niche is that?
That's fairly niche.
But it was such a unique audience that we wanted to serve. And we were able to also support a lot of young artists out there that were trying to get their start in the business. So kind of go to Broadway as an example. I'll give you a Broadway example. My first Broadway show, you probably know the movie A Christmas Story.
Of course.
Sure. So with Ralphie and the leg lamp and all that.
Shoot your eye out.
Oh, yeah, I love it. Yeah, I love it. So that's right. In fact, the guy who played Ralphie, Peter Billingsley, you may know from the film world, was my partner on that. Oh, yeah. And we put up the musical on Broadway with multiple Tony nominations. And we got a composer and lyricist out of University of Michigan, Benj Pasek and Justin Paul, that, as you may know, went on to do La La Land and Greatest Showman and Dear Evan Hansen. So again, discovering young people and helping a demographic that looks like they're on the outskirts, that they do need some representation. I think that's where Patty and I have found our lives leading in that world. So that's kind of, our background.
Now, Jerry, I just have to ask you a side question. I've always been fascinated because I don't know a whole lot about Broadway. I have talked to a couple of Tony Award winners on the show and have talked to a couple of people in Broadway. When I see these shows that pop up every once in a while, which are based on movies, some are, do very well. Some don't. But I'm assuming that in Broadway, they're trying to tap into an existing audience that knows the property, the IP. It's very similar to what studios are doing with films. Like they'll grab a book, they'll grab a comic book, they'll grab something that already has an existing audience. So something like, obviously Lion King is a great example, or any of the Disney shows. I mean, remember when Lion King showed up, everyone was like, Lion King? What? And then, of course, it's still running and it's made a couple bucks along the way. So something like The Christmas Story is really interesting to me because it's a classic, but it wasn't Avatar. So it's a classic film that has an audience to it. But I guess when you and Ralphie put it together, I'm assuming you're trying to tap into that audience, and it's that, as far as the business side is concerned. Again, just trying to understand the niche audiences and how you're approaching it.
That's a very good question, and one I've talked about a lot through the last 10 years. It seems so simple on the surface. Hey, let's get an IP property that it is branded already, it has an audience, and they're going to come because I don't have to worry about as much about having stars or having, huge, great reviews, blah, blah, because some of those don't work in the professional world. But Alex, here's the flip side of that. When you have an audience that is absolutely devotees and fans of an IP property, and you want to change that property, you're kind of playing with fire a little bit, right? So here's what I've learned, and A Christmas Story is a great example, is how do you take the essence of an IP property that is beloved, and then how do you change it to a new medium, retain what was special for all the fans, but I'll take it to the new medium like live musicals on Broadway, and how do you enrich what and deepen what they love without tearing it apart and still giving them what they expect. It's a very, very fine line. Christmas is a great example. For us to get to Broadway, we took 5 years and put it up year after year and changed it and nuanced it to make sure we could hit all those hot buttons. So niche audiences can be really tricky.
Now, is there a song called You'll Shoot Your Eye Out? I'm just asking.
There is.
Thank you. You see, that was, as a fan, I'm like, if there is not a song called You'll Shoot Your Eye Out, you don't have my money.
You're our niche audience. Expectations, Alex.
And I have to say, Jerry really was a champion of staying true to that story and making sure that book reflected the movie and captured the essence. Because it's easy to let that stuff go when it goes to another medium.
Yeah, so. It's. I mean, that movie is such an interesting case study because it did not. When it came out in the 80s, if I'm not mistaken, right?
81, 82,
right. So it wasn't a monster hit even when it came out. It was a very.
It failed at the box office.
It was a very slow burn of a film. And now it's beloved. I mean, it is like now just the merchandise alone every Christmas, you see those lamps with the leg and the outfits for Halloween. I mean, it's insane.
They're all over our house.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Right here, Alex.
Thank you. There, for everyone listening, he just focused the camera onto a leg lamp from The Christmas Story. So, but yeah, which brings us to our conversation today about Saltbox. Now, I wrote a whole book about niche, about that's the future of independent filmmaking. That's the future of filmmaking in general for the independent. Because if you before in the 80s and in the 90s, in the 80s, literally, and I've had this conversation with multiple filmmakers from the 80s, they're like, if you just finished a film, it was sold. It didn't even matter if it was good or not. If you were able to get 35 millimeter celluloid edited and put in a can, it's not going to make money. Like it still had to be good, but it had a shot. You would go into theaters automatically because you were one of 50 people making movies that year, as opposed to now that there's thousands and tens of thousands of people creating content at a very high level. So now the barrier of entry is not technology, which it was before. Now it's audience and finding that audience. So Saltbox is such an interesting concept to me. So please tell me what Saltbox is and how was it born?
I'll throw that to Patty, definitely. This was her idea at that very beginning.
All right. So when COVID happened, we were shut down. I mean, and I was completely unemployed. And we decided to, since everyone was going virtual, and I was specifically concerned about the older adult communities that were in my database, because I had like 6 months sold out, and like everybody called me within 48 hours saying, canceled for the time being.
Yeah.
It was really crazy. And of course, not only that happened, but Broadway went dark. The West End,
it's once in a generation. It's like once in a generation. Yeah.
Yeah, it was just unbelievable. So we had this idea to film my one-woman musicals that I've been doing live and offer them as a virtual option to these senior communities in my database and beyond. Started calling communities one at a time. It became really clear really fast that people wanted more than just a Patty Carver show. They needed all of these activities directors, and communities were being thrown into this frying pan, this virtual frying pan. Many were not tech savvy at all. And they were suddenly, having to, do all this virtual programming. So I went home one night, especially after one conversation in particular with an activities director who was exhausted. They were on quarantine. And she said, I would love to purchase your virtual shows, but I don't have any time in the day. Right now, all I'm doing is bringing food to my residents' doors and arranging FaceTimes with their families. And, I went home that night, said to Jerry, there should be a channel for senior communities, for older adults, especially now when they're so isolated and quarantined, and the whole world is, but they are that much more. And so the next day, Jerry we both started calling our theater colleagues, and Jerry in particular, and started the ball rolling with Saltbox TV. As the first phone calls started happening, everybody was saying it was a good idea. But it wasn't just that. People really wanted to help us. And in particular, older adults that we were reaching out that were in the industry wanted to help. One, because they wanted to help, but also because they want to work too. They wanted work. And, it's been an interesting journey, because we're not just becoming a platform for older adults. In many ways, it's becoming a platform by older adults for older adults. And, the interesting thing that's additionally happened is multi-generational thing or intergenerational thing where if you're an older adult, if you're in your 80s and 90s and might not be tech savvy, your grandson or granddaughter can help you hop on Roku or Fire Stick and get the free app. But I know I skipped a lot in between there because, there were celebrities. Jerry, the first celebrity that stepped forward to help us as spokesperson was Ed Asner. Bless his heart.
Peace, yeah.
Yeah. And, he sort of opened the door to a whole bunch of other people that said, whatever you want to, if you need help, we'll help you.
That's awesome.
So, yeah. And, we hired some gerontologists to help with the structure of the website with, colors and font sizes. And very early on, we realized that older adults are not going to go on if they have to log in or put their email in
Right.
or remember a password. Even my mom, who's our biggest fan, wouldn't go sign into Saltbox if she had to leave her email. So we were like, it has to be click and watch. It has to be free, and it has to be click and watch. And that's what we are. And so we can we can say to people, just click and watch. And it really is that. It's easy.
So you went. So you obviously you went for an AVOD platform, an advertising video on demand platform, as opposed to a TVOD or a subscription based video on demand. Was there a conversation early on to make it, instead of making it subscription, making it AVOD? Because a lot of people think that subscription is the key to everything, but from my understanding and from my experience and my knowledge, AVOD is where the money's at right now for filmmakers and for content creators, because there's no barrier to entry. There's no monthly fee. We are subscribed to death right now. There's so many subscriptions that we have going on, and being able to just click and watch, especially a generation and a niche audience who's so used to television from it's just, it's commercials. Okay. as opposed to 20-year-olds who are going, oh God, commercials. And I'm like, you think commercials are bad? Imagine having to wait for that next episode a week later.
You're right.
Right?
You're right. Yeah.
Alex, we actually, in full disclosure, when we first started, this was the summer of Patty, 20s, when we really got rocking, July of 20s. So we've been doing this about 18 months now. So we're like new. Mm-hmm. We were like, I'll pay $4.99. My first business plan, which has changed like 1,000 times since then, was SVOD.
Sure, and because that's the mentality. Yeah.
Right. I can see the money. It's easy. Subscriptions. Yeah. People like a market too. All that good stuff of capturing information, blah, blah, blah. But then, as Patty mentioned, we learned quickly that this particular audience is not going to do that. No credit cards are coming out. So
$4.99 a month for this audience.
No way.
No, and that's the thing that's so fascinating about, because when you were talking, Patty, I noticed a few key terms there that were very insightful, which are that you were looking at font sizes, you were looking at color schemes, you were doing a deep dive into your audience and really providing value to that audience, where so many filmmakers or even businesses, they'll just launch without even thinking about their audience. They'll write a story. I mean, the same thing goes in theater. I mean, I'm assuming you don't just throw up, hey, let's go put on a show. Let's go spend obscene amount of money. Let's go put on a show, and hopefully someone will show up. There was really a good amount of thought put into, even hiring those specialists to come in and guide you on that. It's really very forward thinking.
And you know what, Alex, this audience that we're talking about it with as if they're a niche audience, but they're a huge.
They're a huge niche. They're huge. Yeah, a huge niche.
Huge. Yeah. And as far as Jerry and I are concerned, and they're a neglected demographic in so many ways,
yes.
And dismissed in so many ways. And, they deserve a font that they can read, right?
And also, they deserve also content that they're going to connect with, because look, everyone's not going to be 20 and 30 years old for the rest of their lives. But according to Hollywood, that's what we see. And I'm not 20 or 30 anymore. And now it's a lot better than it was 10, 15 years ago. Now we're seeing multi-generational stories for women, women that are not 20, these kind of things. And I think that, the smartest business people always look for the neglected audience, the neglected customer, underserved. And that's when this came across my desk, I was like, okay, these guys got it. And I'm like, I can't believe no one has thought of this. And then when I went to your site, I saw Ed Asner, who, by the way, I had a short meeting with on a set one day. I was visiting a friend shooting a film, and I met him. He was the sweetest man, and he was he was busting my balls within the first 5 seconds of meeting him, and he was, oh my God, he was so great. He was so great. But having someone, when I saw Ed Asner, I'm like, okay, these guys get it. They got it. They understand who their audience is. Look at their spokesperson. Look at the way the whole thing is set up. It was really well put together.
Thank you. We learned a lot as we looked at content, and we learned a lot of times we were completely 180 degrees wrong in what we thought. As an example, if you go to the site, you'll see that we have cultivated content. So it's a one-stop shop. Yeah, you can get classic movie and TVs. You can also get lifelong learning. If somebody in your family has dementia, there's all kinds of programming to how do you deal with that, there's all the way to chair yoga for older people. But here's what I learned is that, as I mentioned at the very beginning, we love young artists. We love young creators. So we automatically don't go for, the huge blockbusters. We can't afford them anyway. So we go for the artists that are looking, that have this great piece of content, be it 30 years old or brand new, that come and we put them on our site. Since we're Avon, we do a revenue share deal, so everybody's in the same pot, very standard. But what we learned, I thought people would come because they want to do exercise, they want to learn about dementia care, whatever, and then they would stick around and see all this great entertainment. It's actually the other way around, because everybody wants to be entertained. And then they're like, hey, wait a minute, you have this also for my community or for us. I mean, it just goes to prove that even though you may be 75, you still love the same things you did when you were 25.
Oh, absolutely. There's no question. I mean, which I have to ask you. So right now, your current demographic was raised on the Andy Griffith Show and Sanford and Son and and I Love Lucy and those kind of things. So when Generation X, which is my generation, gets to, is Saltbox going to move with it? Is it, is there going to be a Gen X, channel which I should create one right now, because I would love to watch a Gen X channel of things of just in the 80s and the 90s. But it's still, I mean, there's still plenty of it out there, but but you know what I mean? So is it going to be moving along with, as far as the generation and the audience, because the audience will change. Because I know of Andy Griffith. I watched it when I was very, very young, but it's not a show that I'm going to go watch. But if you throw on, Different Strokes or Friends or, or A-Team or Knight Rider, those are the shows that I grew up with. So is that something that you're thinking about as your population starts to change, as your audience starts to change?
Wow, I hope we have that. I hope we have this problem.
Like, oh God, there's just too much money.
What we talk a lot about, Alex, is the term aging up.
Right.
Because even if we look at 65 plus now, a 65-year-old and a 95-year-old have different entertainment expectations and even kind of community learning opportunities that they need. Now, that generation, let's look at 75 and plus, are maybe not as tech savvy as perhaps a 50-year-old is. But at the same time, there's a lot of smart 75-year-olds out there. So we're already in a mixed group of people and their abilities and access to online streaming. So right there, we can tell you where our niche challenges are. That's where they are. Now, you look 10 years down the road, that's going to start to change. All the people like Patty and I, we just cut the cord a year ago. We're still kind of dealing with all that. We can't just turn on, what we want. We're used to it. But in another 10 years, people are like, I can't believe I subscribe to a cable channel. How archaic is that? So we are not only thinking about that, but we're actually thinking right now, with our multiple mixed ages and our audience that we're reaching to, how do we age up and then look back to the Gen X, to the 50-year-olds like us, and how does all that mix together so we can have a business plan that can go forward?
Yeah, and that's, I mean, I cut the cord probably about 5 years ago. Probably I cut the cord, and then I've never looked back. And every time I move or something, of course I got to talk to the cable guy. Well, we could do this. I'm like, dude, you need to just stop, dude. Or I had DirecTV forever, and they're just like, well, why don't we could give you this sweet deal. I'm like, there's no sweet deal, dude. It's over. I'm probably paying the exact same thing, if not probably more, with all my subscriptions on the apps. There's no question. But the ease of use, the technology of being able to record everything all the time and have access to all of it at all times is something that is just priceless in the world. But now, how did you guys develop the technology? Did you use, did you develop it yourselves? Did you work with partners?
We reached out and made some partnerships with some of my friends in Broadway. So there are some Broadway streaming services out there. We've been friends for a long, long time. So we kind of went in and shared the cost on coders and, kind of build it from the ground up. So this is not a template format. As Petty mentioned, we wanted to make sure that we could have a viewer could change the size of font if they need to. So you literally can go on the homepage and change the size of the font. You can, the colors, all that stuff that we worked on, all that had to be put in from day one. So yeah, we basically are all about partnerships in our world right now.
I know the feeling. Yeah, partnerships are much more affordable than cash out of pocket.
And everybody wins. We all bring our in front, and it makes filmmakers and TV makers out there. They're bringing projects to us because there's a need for all of us. We need great content from artists and creators, and these artists and creators need as many distribution channels as they can get.
There was a filmmaker story I heard that they directed a documentary about centurions who were at the Olympics, like the Olympic centurion, like
Something like that.
Yeah, and they tried to do the normal thing and it just didn't work. So they actually went out to these communities and toured and sold licenses, and they made over $1 million. Just like really? I think they went to a convention, and you guys probably know that convention where they all get together to buy content or things like that. Right, exactly. So they went in and they said that in the first that weekend they sold $380,000 worth of licenses, just because there's such a lack for this demographic, for this this niche audience. And it's not like we say niche, but we're talking about 65 and older. There's a few of them. The baby boom generation is
Yeah, no, it's totally the largest demographic in this country. All those baby boomers are over 55 now. And that's it. I mean, we talk about advertisers. Guess who has the most disposable income? Baby boomers over 55.
Yeah. I know. And that's why $4.99 should have made sense, but it didn't.
But it does. You know what? What's very interesting to me is that as we look at the financial landscape of all of this, that Hollywood does truly focus on the young person, and I get that. Our kids are in their mid-20s, and they do their thing. But there is such not only a market for the content, but there is a very huge potential market for artists to be seen by millions, to make money from that in revenue share deals, to find a new way to get product out, and to get all these amazing stories that are being told at a high quality. You brought up, Alex. There is opportunities out there being created all the time, like Saltbox TV.
Yeah, and I mean, I was just shocked that no one had thought of this, and no one had done it the way that you guys are doing it. And you obviously considered the technology barriers for your audience. You are very well aware that they are not. I mean, if my parents are any indication, they I mean, texting was a thing, and right. Like email was a thing, and God forbid, my father's like, next time you come over, I need you to set up Apple TV because it sounds really good. But I don't, because he loves it when he comes over to my place, and he's like, wait a minute, I can watch baseball all day. I'm like, yes, you can. How much is it? What? But there's that technology barrier. So you guys really thought about that. And again, filmmakers listening now, thinking about your niche audience. I mean, obviously we're talking about a streaming service, which is different than a piece of content, but concepts are still the same. Thinking about your audience and thinking how you can get your product to them, how it can serve them is something that should be upfront when you're thinking about this. Do you agree?
No question. I'll give you one last example. I see Patty wanted to add to that. But when we first started, we said we're going to take our first 2 years, and we still have like 6 months left. And we're not going to worry about advertisers right now. Let's build our base. We'll just get some investors, and we'll just pay for this the old-fashioned way, right? And we're still doing that. What we wanted to do is get into these markets so we could actually get real feedback and build our base. So what we started with, your point, to get to senior communities when they all live together in a community, and they are all then serviced with content from one provider. And there's many providers out there. Like right now, we're in over 5,000 communities nationwide, and each community has 200 to 250 people in it, because we know they can actually watch us because of the technology in those communities. And of course, we did OTT platforms and all that, but that's going to take a while. We have to be patient for that to grow, to people to age into that. So you hit it right on the head. It's about technology and finding the lowest common denominator. How do you get this to them?
Now, what is the marketing plan for this? Because I'm assuming you don't have the $200 million for marketing that Universal does for their next Fast and Furious thing. So obviously you had a database and you knew this audience very well. So I'm assuming that's what you tapped first. But beyond that list and beyond those original contexts, how are you planning to reach that audience? What are you doing with that?
Well, we're talking to you.
Well, I'm not sure my demographic is going to be going into Saltbox, but hey, listen, I have no idea who listens to me sometimes. But how other ways are you doing it?
Well, I just have to say we're doing any marketing press opportunities that we can at the moment, and we're doing that all the way to giving out postcards one person at a time. I'm actually doing that, going to communities. Live gigs are happening again, and I've been to, I go to lots of communities again, which thank goodness. And I'm getting that way.
Oh, I'm sorry, Patty.
No. I'm just kind of just saying that it's a big array of things right now, a great big puzzle of different marketing puzzle pieces right now.
But back to partnerships for a second, Alex. Let's think about this. We're not the only ones out there that want to get content to this audience. They want to bring this audience in, right? And so the streamers of various sizes, from a tiny new place like us all the way up the chain, are looking for partnerships, are looking how to share content, looking at fast channels, looking at linear, looking at different ways to get out. I think ultimately that's the answer. You're right. We don't have 200 million to do USA Today ads and AARP ads and all the stuff that costs so much money. We are going to continue partnering and with other like-minded streamers, not only to get our content out, but to also create content together. We're in multiple deals now in pre-production to start creating our own content, bringing all of those people together and telling stories and filming and creating. And we're not doing it by ourselves by any means. And so honestly, that's the truth. That's how we're getting the word out, because there's a need and other people are seeing it too that have many more eyeballs than we do and a much broader reach than we do, and the same need.
Yeah. One of the ways we when we first started gathering content, when we first began this, the obvious is movies and sitcoms and documentaries, but we also went surfing YouTube and finding content providers with big followings. And we just reached out to them. We just got on the phone and found them. And it's ended up in some really wonderful partnerships with, for instance, Teepa Snow, who's like the rock star of dementia care. There's a guy, and she has hundreds of thousands of followers on YouTube. And, it's a win-win because people see her on Saltbox, that directs them back to her site, and it benefits everyone. There's a guy named Greg Pickens who has a show called Finding America. He travels across the country with his metal detector, and he digs and he finds these treasures, and he's got a huge following, and he has recently joined us. And, we have like 10 of his programs on Saltbox. And when you go to Saltbox, you're also directed back to his channel. And, we have that type of partnership with so many content providers who, especially at the beginning, really kind of took a leap of faith in this new company called Saltbox that wanted to, do a 50-50 revenue share, and, partner with us to air their content. And
that's the thing that I that's interesting about your specific audience is that you can't buy Facebook ads. You can't buy, YouTube ads. Right. You can't do the traditional even content marketing is not something that your audience, is not looking on YouTube or looking on for articles about things, generally speaking. I mean, obviously it's different, but generally speaking. So I think for the lesson for filmmakers listening is that you are going at the street level and partnering with other audiences, which is something I talked about in my book. You go where the audience is, you partner with those people, and then try to tap into that audience and try to provide service to them, and they provide service to you. And that's much more powerful, I think, than Facebook ads. If you're able to partner with someone in your niche who's a rock star in your niche, that's so much more powerful than spending $100,000 on Facebook ads and hoping that someone will click on it. Is that fair?
Very
Yeah.
fair.
And they bring the passion to we have the same mission. So,
Right.
Yeah, and what's interesting too is just what we're discovering on the aging up topic and this marketing is that, like you had mentioned, your parents, Patty and I parents are the same way, maybe a little older than yours, but the same idea is that we're finding that those older adults that truly maybe get a little lost in all of this, the kids or the grandkids are understanding that, and they want to help their parents or grandparents to be more connected, and then starts connecting families. I mean, this is getting called kind of heartfelt now, but we're seeing that happen. We're seeing, honestly, a marketing opportunity we didn't anticipate, which is our kids and grandkids helping older adults have access to this content.
You know, it's so funny that some of the content that is aimed at your demographic, let's say a show like The Golden Girls, which is a show that I watch, but then millennials love. And I was watching it. I was watching a show like that in the 80s when I was a teenager. I was like, I love The Golden Girls. Like, that's one of those shows that just jumps through generations. So it's really interesting.
if it's a good story and it's well done, everybody loves it.
Yes,
I mean, look at Grace and Frankie right now. That was old. Guess who's watching it?
Oh
Us.
my God. Yeah, it's I can't. I mean, yeah, I'm obsessed with Grace and Frankie. I'm obsessed with it.
Enough of.
I mean, I'm obsessed. My wife and I started watching it. We're like, we are obsessed with this show, Lily Tomlin. And like, I just hope before the series ends that Dolly Parton just makes a cameo. Please, just bring Dolly. Please bring Dolly in. Please, please.
We agree. Go Dolly.
Yes, exactly. Now, how did you?
I just got word that Dolly Parton is going to make a cameo on the last episode.
Okay.
I have a colleague here who knows everything.
Wow, we're all learning this together, Alex.
Well, you heard it here first, everybody. Dolly Parton is going to be on the last episode of Grace and Frankie. Well, yeah, there's only a handful of episodes left, and I'm sad, but and going off topic just for a second, there is no reason why Grace and Frankie should have succeeded in a platform like Netflix for as long. It's like the longest running series in Netflix history, like has the most seasons of shows, to my knowledge.
7 seasons.
So yeah, there's no other show. I think even Orange is the New Black stopped at 5 or 6, so that it makes no sense. Like on paper, this makes no sense. But when you watch it, you're just like, okay, this makes absolutely sense. It's just good writing, good performing. I mean, it's amazing. And a question I have to ask you as well with the AVOD platform, how did you get advertisers? Because that's always a big problem with AVOD platforms. Unless you're tap into one of the big boys like a Tubi or something like that, how did you bring advertisers in, and how do you get them? As much as you can tell me, I don't want to get any proprietary stuff out.
No, actually, I'm going to give hints because we had to learn this. Again, theater people, we don't go out and get commercials, so we kind of like to learn how to do it. So here's what I learned a lot about programmatic advertising and learning how that works in the digital world. And, our site right now has no advertising on it, and we'll start July 1st. So we're still just self-funding this whole thing. But we are now working with programmatic advertising firms out there that do this work. And then we are coding their work into our underbelly, So all of our platform will have full systematic integration of programmatic advertising. So then we do the revenue share, and they're a part of that. But then our goal is over the next 5 years to start phasing that out, having our own sales staff, having our own, really kind of phasing that out. But right now there's resources out there because everybody sees this burgeoning streaming market exploding, and there are advertisers that want a specific audience in a specific area of the country of a specific age and interest, and programmatic advertising gives that to you. Perfect.
Yeah, and I get it through podcasting right now. So as you're listening to this podcast, I've heard that there's been ads that have been local to that specific area that they're listening to the podcast. And as opposed to, I mean, there's some general market stuff like a McDonald's or a Honda or something like that. But many times it's local advertising. And I found out when I moved from Los Angeles to Austin, my ads, I start hearing local Austin ads when I'm listening to my own show to test it. I'm like, oh, okay. So even then through my my provider, it does that too. So I think we're still in the infancy of AVOD. Very much so, very much in the infancy of AVOD, and it's getting better and better. But we'll get to the point where, like anyone, almost, I can't say anyone can get an SVOD going because it's not. It does take a little bit of, there is a barrier to entry to that. But generally speaking, it can't still be done. Where 5 to 8 years ago, if you guys said I'm gonna open up Saltbox, it would have been, the technology would have been a major hurdle on cost and putting it all out there and everything like that. So, where there's a will, there's a way.
That's right.
Without question.
We've learned that our ignorance has paid off because I don't know how to do it, so I just do it. So we just do it.
Really, it's not, and this programmatic advertising is not my world at all. And
yeah, sure.
I just look at it as this magical thing where, the right advertisements appear before and after, and it's all good.
Right, and it's all tacked in, and then
get
some
a company to do that for you. Right?
some sort of gremlins inside the computer do it for you, and that's it. Little elves or something, and that's it. And then a check shows up. It's just fantastic. So it's kind of like residual payments for television or films. Like all of a sudden you're like, hey, someone's doing something, someone's tracking something. I get a check. It's fine. It's nice. Now, what's so where do you see Saltbox in the next 5-10 years?
You want to take that or should I? I'll start.
Well, I see it growing. I mean, we're gathering momentum. I see it growing. And what I'm most excited about is the opportunities that are happening for our in-house productions. I want stories by Saltbox TV. That's
right.
What's on the horizon for us.
Yeah.
I mean, Netflix figured that out a little bit ago.
Yeah.
Well, it's true. Yeah. I mean, there's only so many I Love Lucy's you can put up and people will come. We need destination content, to be quite honest. We're used to creating our own shows from scratch on Broadway. So now we're working with the same and more artists from a different field, from the electronic media. And we're meeting new people every day. So those listening, feel free to reach out. Look at the Salt, but we're looking for always to partnerships and content. I think my main goal is to continue cultivating the content for this aging up audience. I mean, right now, in a year and a half, with really no experience doing this, we have almost 400 pieces of content up right now, and some have multiple episodes. We're talking well over 1,000 pieces that are on our site right now, and we are just now starting to produce our own and work with other production companies to make that happen. So, yeah, let's see where it goes.
I want to add to that, Jerry. So yes. It's going to grow. It's going to be great. And I'm so excited about all the possibilities to produce Saltbox productions. But for me also, the mission will always be to be a resource for communities. Saltbox TV started out as a resource for communities. And of course, there's such a broader market out there. But that will always be something that's extremely important to me, to reach those activity directors in communities that can use Saltbox for any number of reasons. So.
And there's a lesson there for filmmakers to listen to is always think about your audience and not about the money. Now, when you're making movies and you're being a filmmaker, yeah, you have to be financially responsible. But if you don't lead with being of service to the audience, whatever that story might be. Look, Marvel does it probably better than anyone else. Disney does it probably better than anyone else, whether you like or hate their films. They're doing it at a pretty high level, and they're reaching their audience, and they're paying off their audience. It's paying off for their audience. I still remember watching Avengers Endgame, and after 10 years of stories ending with that story, how it just brought the entire audience together, and I'm their audience. So it might not be someone else, but what they did is they did think about how to really touch their audience in a way that a lot of Hollywood productions and a lot of filmmakers don't think about. They think about what's hot. Like, what's hot right now? Like aging Americans. Yes, if that's where the money is. We got to throw things in there. But if there's no heart behind it, it will fail. I feel.
That's right.
Agree completely. Yeah.
Now I'm going to ask you a few questions. I ask all my guests. What is the lesson that took you the longest to learn, whether in the entertainment industry or in life?
Oh, woo, Patty, you have to go first.
No, you have to go first. No, you.
Oh my goodness. All right. So from the heart on this one is that someday we're all going to be at that moment when we're no longer here, right? Mm-hmm. You're going to have a little time to look back and think, you think of the things first you want to think about, the family, your friends, all of that, and then think, can I make a difference? What did I do to help people? What did I do to take what little skills I have, in this case, bringing artists together, and did I make a difference? Did I help somebody with what I did? Or was it all just self-absorbed, make money, I want to have this story, I'm just determined to make it for other reasons? I learned that as soon as I have a project that is driven like that, is driven by an investor or a partnership that is only seeking the return, that's when it fails. And if there's not somebody that at the top that trickles down with passion and artistic integrity and a reason for doing it, that it's not worth doing. We've learned that multiple times through the years, and we keep getting reminded of that. So there you go.
That's a great lesson. Great lesson. How about you, Patty?
All right. Mine's short and sweet, I think. Always be willing to change the plans, because the best laid plans are always going to be blown out of water.
That's a good one. Yep.
So you mean to tell me that things don't go as planned in life? Is that what you're saying, Patty? Because I mean, everything I've ever planned, it came out perfect. I don't know what you're talking about.
Oh, come here, please.
Oh my God! And when you're young, you think, oh my God! And when you're younger, you think that everything that you're planning is exactly. It never happens exactly how you plan it, and most of the times, even when it's bad, in hindsight, it was good. I've always found even the worst things that have happened to you in life somehow is something that needed to happen or was meant for some sort of good. And I know that's hard to accept sometimes for people, because I got shrapnel. I've got a lot of shrapnel, and I'm sure you guys have shrapnel as well in the business.
Yes.
Not an easy business.
Not at all. Now, what did you learn from your biggest failures, artistic or business-wise?
From Saltbox or in life?
In life. Well, Saltbox is still there, so I'm assuming we're still good. Well, let's rephrase that question. What was the biggest lesson you've learned so far from launching Saltbox?
I'll tackle that first. Is that you get pitched by so many people, and so many people that have decades of experience in this business, and they only see it one way. You have to do it this way. We've always done it this way. It's how Hollywood works. Luckily, I don't know how Hollywood works. So when I come in and say, here's how I'm going to do this. And the lesson I learned from that, because we tried stuff the Hollywood way a couple times, and you know what? It was a miserable failure.
Shocking.
I know. I was like, you know what? I'm just going to kind of do what I know and do it the way I know how to do it. And if it's not your cup of tea, then thanks for calling.
Very good answer. You want to add anything, Patty?
Yeah. What I've learned through Saltbox right now is that I have to say, when we started, it's a great idea, but there's so many great ideas out there. What I've learned is that yes, we can do this, because we were a couple of theater people that just dove off a cliff into this new medium. And really, and Jerry talks about, ignorance is bliss. It really is true, because ignorance is bliss, and it allows you to pick up the phone and, call somebody that, you wouldn't otherwise. And actually, I tell the team here sometimes, if we have an interview, don't tell me too much about this, because I just want to go talk. I don't want to know. Anyway, but I also, and this kind of piggybacks off of what Jerry was saying. I go with my gut, my intuitive feelings about things. And from the get-go, I've also been saying that I have just a really good feeling about this, coming into the office and, and just the day-to-day stuff and finding a balance.
That's great. Yeah. I mean, I was completely ignorant when I picked up a microphone 6.5 years ago and started a podcast. I didn't think I would be here. That's for sure. My best laid plans were not this, and it's so much better than what I ever thought of. So I've been blessed in that sense. So ignorance many times is bliss. And last question, guys: 3 of your favorite films of all time.
3. Oh my goodness. Okay, Patty, you go first on this one. Good
Whatever comes to mind.
Can we go back and forth?
Sure.
All right. I like Shawshank Redemption.
That's my number 1. Thank you so much. It's one of the best written scripts ever, and one of the best movies ever, and I can watch it a million times. And sorry, everyone who's listening knows my love for Shawshank.
I know we'd love to work with Morgan Freeman. Just putting that out there,
Morgan.
Jerry, your turn.
All right. I've got to say, love Scorsese, so I'm going to go with, what's a good script? The Goodfellas.
Goodfellas. Good film. Can't complain.
Silence of the Lambs.
Wow.
Oh.
See, as you hear the nice, kind voice, Silence of the Lambs, it doesn't connect. It doesn't connect, but but also what a fantastic film. That wasn't. I didn't think that was going to come out of your lips there. That was nice.
She's a tough one, not me. See, I like Silver Linings Playbook, so
There you go. That makes sense. And then next she's going to go Texas Chainsaw Massacre. I think that it's a fantastic film. No,
I'm trying to think of I have just musicals in general, but I think my favorite musical, because I have to include a musical, Hairspray.
Oh, nice. That's a fun movie. That is a fun movie. And last but not least,
one more, Jerry.
All right, I'm thinking. Since we're almost to that season, I'm going to say the one that I end up being only one in the house watching it most of the time is It's a Wonderful Life.
Oh, good. Yeah, that's a fantastic film. I mean, not as good as Die Hard, which is obviously the best Christmas movie of all time. But, no, I'm joking.
Christmas Story, of course.
Obviously a Christmas Story. But I've had multiple conversations on how Die Hard is a Christmas movie. And we actually did the numbers. We did research. It actually is. It has more Christmas references than Home Alone does.
Really?
We did. There's a whole episode. I'll probably re-release it for Christmas.
Movie, Jerry.
And we actually talked to John McTiernan and to the writer, and both of them said, "Well, yeah, it's a Christmas movie now."
I love it. That's so great.
Couple Patty, it has been an absolute pleasure talking to you guys. Thank you so much.
You too.
Much success with Saltbox, and I hope the audience picks up a couple of nuggets on how to approach niche audiences and how they can create projects and sell things to a niche audience. It is a very powerful idea and needs to be put out there more. But I do appreciate what you're doing. So thank you so much.
Thanks for having us, Alex.
Thank you, Alex.